While traveling with the governor in Japan, WCCO reporter Pat Kessler is coming across many Minnesota connections. And today he introduces us to a Nisswa, Minnesota native living in Japan and holding a high-level position at Northwest Airlines.
There's a Minnesota connection with every Northwest jet arriving or departing Japan's Narita Airport in the Asia Japan to hold a high-level executive position. But Japan experts say foreign companies like Northwest are introducing the concept in the Asian labor force.
As foreign companies are coming in and offering better pay, better work conditions, I think that is forcing Japanese companies to offer better conditions, but it's still slow and it's still very early in the game.
Lori Lofgren represents a new breed of American workers in the Far East, and companies like Northwest expect.
Once called Mr. Torture.
He would tie up Jimmy Brunzell, and I'd just sit on the apron and watch, and he'd smile at me.
Masa Saito, who lived in Minnesota in the 80s, played tour guide to the governor on his first full day in Japan. In a nod to the men's shared history and the Japanese reverence for their greatest athletes, Saito led the governor on a moving pilgrimage to the Sumo Shrine. Donning a white robe, the governor participated in a Shinto purification ceremony in the shrine originally built in the 12th century. But the governor seemed most intrigued by a stone monument to the Sumos, as his advance team knew he would. A month ago, they scouted the pillar of handprints, ensuring the governor's large hand would fit.
And so we got a tracing of his hand, and then I brought that paper and we put it up there. And there's no problem. Those are much bigger than the governor's hands.
Well, they're obviously pretty big guys. They reminded me of Andre the Giant from my days of pro wrestling, the hand size and the height and all that.
But the governor's interest in Japan is apparently reciprocated by the Japanese interest in him. Surrounded by Minnesota media, he is also followed everywhere by the Japanese press, who clearly see a good story in the reincarnation of this one-time wrestler who's come so far from that Tokyo Dome ring. While the governor is here in Japan, he's going to see a lot of Tokyo, Paul and Diana, but there is a lot of stuff that he cannot see. He's just too busy. So while we're here covering the trade mission, we also want to introduce you to what makes a city of 20 million people so unique and so exotic. So look for stories of the governor's trade mission, but also look for stories about this unusual city.
Ventura may be 4,000 miles from home, but he's running into some familiar faces in Japan.
There are many Minnesotans who've given up the land of 10,000 lakes for a very different kind of life overseas. And when they arrive, most can't believe the things they see. KARE 11 political reporter Carrie Miller is traveling with the governor and has more from Tokyo. Carrie?
Paul and Diana, what if you suddenly found yourself living in a place where you didn't know the language, you couldn't even read the alphabet, and you didn't have a clue about all of those rules that everybody else seems to be following? Well, some daring Minnesotans have come east to live in Japan, and they've lived to tell about it.
For all of its cosmopolitan flash, its techno-futurist gloss, its sheer exoticism, one Minnesotan who spent 13 years here says he imagines Japan as a beautiful yet protective zoo, and the U.S. a wild, unruly jungle.
In Japan, you play by the rules, you're fed, you're protected from the elements, so-called. You'll go along, but you can't spread your wings. You can't go too far in the system, I mean, in general. And so you're safe, but you can't reach your full potential often. In the States, you can be the king of the jungle. You can reach the top of the mountain, but you can also fail.
Imrie also says the protocol, the etiquette, the rules are simply overwhelming at first. This is a society where workers clean a building's pillars every day, and the subway guards wear white gloves. Lori Lofgren knew it would